We've got a little thing to start us out with, so let's watch this very briefly.
It's General Manager Daryl Morey, whose tweet supporting anti-government protests in Hong Kong set off a firestorm between the country and the league.
I don't want to get into a feud with Daryl Morey, but I believe he wasn't educated on the situation at hand, and he spoke.
I mean, I guess LeBron James is
he's kind of a pioneer.
He's evidently very educated. And he speaks.
Yeah, especially on CCP affairs.
Yeah. I remember what this was all about was, during the Hong Kong protests, they were, protesting for freedom and democracy in Hong Kong.
And they got smashed by the CCP.
Daryl Morey, he posted out like a tweet to support them.
Yeah.
And because he did that, NBA got into so much trouble and were cancelled in China, effectively.
Yeah.
They were boycotted, cancelled. They were going to lose everything, so they had to grovel on their hands and knees. He had to delete his tweet and put out an apology. LeBron James called him out, saying that, he didn't know what he was talking about, basically. Yeah. And so there were a whole bunch of memes. So, this is about celebrities that sold themselves to China.
Well, I just want to say that this is an old meme, but it checks out. The reason we're bringing it up is because we found a new shill on the block amongst celebrities, and we're going to end with him.
Yes.
We want to catch you up. We want to catch you up with everybody.
Yeah. So, as you can see, for those of you who are listening and not watching, we've got a couple of memes here. The first one, you've got, during the, what is he? He's NBA. Yeah, no, keep thinking NFL, whatever, NBA.
I love NFL.
Yeah, so during NBA, they do this kneeling thing when they play the national anthem as a sign of disrespect for the national anthem or a sign of respect for something, or, it's a political message that they're doing. But not when the Chinese national anthem is playing, and you see them all standing up with hand on heart for the Chinese national anthem, kneeling for the American one. Yeah.
Don't kneel for the Uyghurs that are in concentration camps.
Well, here's the thing. They actually have been told that they must stand for the Chinese national anthem. They are not allowed to kneel.
Because the Chinese audience that's watching...
Yes.
They have to see
it shows you that all this political activism. I know.
Whoa, you went there.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
you went all in. Yeah. We went to put this media back together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's LeBron James being shafted by China, quite literally. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh boy.
The thing is, this political activism is all good and well, but only in free countries. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
So you'll get these athletes and stuff will be all pious and full of, all their garbage and kneel for the national anthem and wear T-shirts and do certain things, when they're in a free country. But when it comes to China, they're not allowed to do any of that stuff. And you see how they are and still remain silent.
That's where I stand is kneel for the national anthem. If that's what you stand for and if that's your political statement, you have every gosh darn right to do that.
Sure.
And that's fantastic that you have that right.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't play by that same rule when you're in a different country because of the market. Bullshit. That is where you're wrong.
It just proves that it's hollow.
Yes.
The stuff that they pretend to stand for, they obviously don't. Because if you, let's be honest, if you really were all about, say,
human beings,
equality, and that type of thing,
you certainly wouldn't support the CCP.
No, not the way they treat the minorities, people like the Uyghurs and the Tibetans
or
and
black
stuff.
people.
Or black people in China treated terribly. You certainly would still kneel down for the Chinese national anthem too, but they won't. They refuse. And it shows you that it's just a political play, a plot, a ploy to get sympathy and to get support.
You really doubled up on that meme there.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of one of my faves. Anyway, there's a stand with Morey, and it's got him saying no, and then it's like stand with money, and it's yes.
It's like yes.
Yeah, some of his tweets. Let's see what else we got.
Some classics, just to remind everyone. Set the stage for what we found.
It's got the Nike ad in front of LeBron James's face. It says, "Believe in something unless it means sacrificing our profits."
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, it's true though. A lot of these companies, all of these big companies, you must understand, these big corporations love to jump on the political bandwagon. Yeah. Whenever there's some kind of a political row or the BLM movement or something, they jump behind it straight away. But when it comes to China, they refuse. They absolutely refuse to jump behind any of the human rights issues.
Well, because the whole market's gone in China if they do anything like that.
It's so hypocritical.
It is. It is. I'm not making excuses.
It's infuriating though, because they are willing to basically do the exact opposite of what they're doing in the West when it comes to China.
This meme is him talking to
Tank Man.
He's a PLA soldier. And he's talking to Tank Man, who is actually Morey. And he's because this is what he said to Maury. He's not educated on the matter. Okay.
But yeah, LeBron James is leaning on the tank and he's saying, I believe you're misinformed and not really educated on the system because...
Situation. Yeah.
Sorry, situation. That's the whole thing. The Hong Kong pro-democracy protests were all about trying to stop the level of suppression and brutality of the CCP, the way it controls the people, just like what it did in Tiananmen Square is what they were afraid would be happening in places like Hong Kong. And that's why these things happened. You see, so this is my favorite meme out of all
this
of
is
them.
the most like
it's on the point.
Yeah.
Okay, today was 80s Day for school.
So it's obviously like a theme day.
Yeah, you got to dress up as something for take a look.
It's fun.
So he's dressed up as Tank Man, which is great.
That's awesome.
I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Hero of a boy.
This was in the States, right?
Correct.
If this was in China, he would be disappeared, just like the original Tank Man.
Correct. That's awesome, though.
That's a great Halloween costume, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not like...
That is scary.
It is scary. It's to scare the world and be like, let's not let this happen again.
Yeah. So let's get back to the LeBron James, because we got a few more of them. Don't worry.
Okay.
We're not done with him yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to the next one. Yeah, here we have another one of those Nike type ads. It says, believe in something unless you're criticizing China. And then it's got a little Chinese flag says, just shut up and dribble. Yep. And of course, one of him as Mao Zedong on the side there. And here's a headline, okay, from October 9th, 2019, which says, NBA now requiring all players to stand for Chinese national anthem. And it just shows you the hypocrisy, the absolute hypocrisy of it all. It's absolutely terrible. Let's see what's next. Yeah, we got him as a cultural revolutionary in one of those typical propaganda posters. Kneeling down for China, you know, the whole usual stuff that you would expect. So that's LeBron James. We're kind of past him now.
Yeah. So LeBron James is less funny than the next one.
Yeah.
There has been a huge uptick in one of our favorites out there, and that is John Cena.
John Cena.
You can't see him because he's too busy shilling for China.
Yes.
Little rundown, quick. John Cena, of course, massively popular in the WWE, WWF scene. He was very popular in that scene. But what happened was because WWE was so popular in China, in fact, more popular than here. All my students watched that.
Yeah. Super popular.
He decided that it'd be a more lucrative market. And my favorite stuff, and unfortunately I couldn't include this stuff because this got my video claimed when I brought it up, but he does these vlogs for WWE in different countries, broadcasts for different countries where he's walking around China and he's like, this is a supermarket. And believe it or not, supermarkets are in the basement of a mall. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I'm going to go buy some cookies. And he does these like shill vlogs, which is hilarious.
It's really funny, yeah.
The most nefarious thing that he did is what he got famous for.
Yeah.
And that is when it hit westernized. He likes to practice his Chinese. And he gets in front of his little cell phone camera and he says things like Happy New Year or whatever. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, he's smart. He knows,
he's smart. He knows how to play
He knows
it.
that this is where his bread and butter is going to be coming from in the future because, let's be honest, I think his career was kind of waning a little bit. You know, It wasn't as popular in the West anymore. He saw China as this massive market and he started to pander for the market, which is totally fine. That's business.
Yeah.
You know, and there's nothing wrong with that.
The problem does come from this, though.
Yeah.
And it comes from when he accidentally called Taiwan a country in one of his little streams or whatever.
No, it was an interview.
Sorry.
He was being interviewed for his role in the Fast and the Furious 9.
That's right.
Okay.
9.
Yeah,
9 of them.
It's terrible.
Anyway.
So anyway, he's being interviewed. And in the interview, he said that he couldn't wait for Fast and Furious to come out in this country. When he was talking about Taiwan, he was being interviewed for Taiwan news or something. I can't remember the exact context. But in essence, he called Taiwan a country, which is a massive, massive no-no in mainland China. Because mainland China, their idea is that Taiwan belongs to China. It's an inseparable part since ancient times, all that kind of stuff. And you may not say it's a country. So he obviously realized his mistake, number one, because he probably started to get bombed by, all these Wu Mao leaving comments. But I'm pretty sure that his producers and all the people involved in the Fast and the Furious 9 were like, listen, dude, you've just screwed up our chances. You better apologize, otherwise they're going to boycott the movie and it's not going to be watched in China.
Right.
Absolutely, that's what happened. That's what went down behind closed doors. So he immediately issued a groveling apology.
Right.
to the people of China. And he's like, oh, I have to apologize. I made a mistake. We've got it lined up here. We'll show you his actual
I have to
apology.
make a quick groveling apology.
Yeah.
Just it's not. I think people misunderstood the making NBA players stand for the Chinese national anthem. We know that it's satire. We
Yes.
get that that's part of that's why it was in the meme collection.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Yeah.
continue. I was just saw some people talking about it.
Anyway, guys, the fact of the matter is, John Cena, he issued this groveling apology, okay? But the problem with his groveling apology is that he couldn't even mention what he'd done wrong.
Right.
That's how bad it is. You simply cannot mention that Taiwan's a country. So he couldn't even say in his apology, I'm sorry for calling Taiwan a country. He just had to say, I made one very big, serious mistake, and I apologize for it, and I apologize for it greatly. You know?
Unfortunately for him, the youngsters out there really caught on to that because it makes you look like a real piece of shit.
No, absolutely. And he's groveling. I mean, look,
Yeah.
John Cena is supposed to be this macho man wrestler. Okay, he's
Yes.
supposed to be a tough guy.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there like a little boy,
Saying,
I'm
so
sorry.
sorry.
Oh, no, I
Oh,
made
I
such a
hurt the
big
feelings."
mistakes. Blah blah. And it really ruins his image.
So we're going to go through a marathon of delicious, amazing memes because what people have done is they've taken the design language of QQ and other really shitty Chinese apps
Yeah.
and put that into like groveling apologies with mistranslations of what he's saying and then minusing his social credit score. It's fantastic
Yeah.
stuff.
Let's take a look. All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
因为冰淇淋，电视，速度与激动，冰淇淋。
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港制作。
You stupid！ 中国这条西呢，我做很多采访，很多。所以在一个采访我有一个错误。你们准备？1、2、3，2个礼拜以后 ，Come on， 速度与激情就，我在2个礼拜以后，Oh yeah。你好，微博。现在我拍电影，但是我给手机吃饭，我不可以用我的手机。我们拍的时候，所以我现在拍这个，因为他们给我老干妈。早上好，中国。现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。
Don't you feel silly? Don't you feel stupid?
电视《速度与激情》就。冰淇淋，速度与激情，速度与激情就我最喜欢。
见了没？
所以现在是差不多一样，冰淇淋再见。
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港这座城市的设置。主演钱德勒、罗斯、吴波斯伊、瑞秋。
你好，微博。现在我拍电影，但是我给手机吃饭。
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港
是的，最高領袖
这座城市的设置。
浩白。
我不知道关于老干妈。
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片。
非常好的 chili sauce， 所以现在每天。
香港。
早上好，中国。现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。电视《速度与激情》就冰淇淋，《速度与激情》，《速度与激情》就我最喜欢。所以现在是差不多一样，冰淇淋再见。你好，中国，这是赵西呀。我必须说，现在。
This is his actual apology.
Yeah.
This part over here is this is why. Okay, let's go through it very quickly.
So you can catch up.
Okay.
速度与激情就我做很多采访，很多。
By the way, just got to say, his Chinese it's a weird thing where it's possible. It's possible.
okay.
His accent is awful.
Yeah.
And his tones are awful.
Yeah.
But I can understand what he's saying. But I can understand it because it's very simple.
Yeah,
It's very,
it's like memorized sentences, basically.
Yeah. But
the grammar's wrong too.
Yeah, he is speaking Chinese.
Yeah.
And it is someone that
it's like a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, and if someone can understand Chinese, they'll be able to understand what he's saying.
They'll understand what he's saying.
But it's kind of in a goofy sort of a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if Goofy spoke Chinese, you know, that kind of thing.
That's what it sounds like.
Anyway.
所以在一个采访我有一个错误。
What was your mistake?
所有人问我，如果我可以用中文，速度与激情9人给我很多资讯 information，所以很多采访，很多 information。
I like how he has to put information in a Chinese accent.
Information is a very well-known Chinese word.
很重要。我爱更尊重中国，更中国人。我很抱歉对我的错误，对不起，我很抱歉。必须了解，我。
You did say 对不起 quite a lot.
很爱，很尊重。
Look at this piss boy groveling. Little piss boy.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a couple more memes.
Yeah, he's like, I deeply love and respect the Chinese people. He said that multiple times. And it shows you that's because that's his target audience. And it's kind of terrible that you have to say something like that, because just because you said Taiwan is a country doesn't mean that you hate the people and don't respect the people of China.
No.
But that's what it's come to these days. That if you mention that Taiwan's a country, that automatically means you disrespect and hate the people of China. What kind of a bullshit situation
You shouldn't be
is
You should look at that and be like, okay, maybe that was a bad career move, but I can't apologize for that. That's ridiculous. You don't go out there and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I actually really do love all of you.
Yeah.
Those two things don't even equate.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you how pathetic this whole, like,
I was fine with his shilling in the beginning until this happened. And then I was like, bro, you deserve this hate memes.
Yeah. So let's have, you got another one or two memes?
Yeah, we'll write it out.
Okay, here we go.
This should be the video you go to see all these.
Yeah.
所以在一个采访我有一个错误，你们准备？1、2、3，2个礼拜以后 ，Come on， 速度与激情9，我是在2个礼拜以后。
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。电视《速度与激情9》比冰淇淋《速度与激情》《速度与激情9》我最喜欢，所以现在是因为时间。
张牙舞爪健身操，祝您健康步步高，路的。
你好，中国，这是叫西娜。我必须说，现在在《速度与激情9》我做很多采访，所以在一个采访我有一个错误。
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港这座城市的设置。
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰。
我爱北京天安门，天安门上太阳升。我爱北京天安门，天安门上太阳升。我爱北京天安门，天安门上太阳升。我爱北京天安门，天安门上太阳升。我爱北京天安门，天安门上太阳升。我爱北京天安门。
早上好，中国。
So anyway, we've got to move on to our next shill, who we have uncovered, which is a big disappointment to both of us, actually.
Yeah, so this is what... Okay, so we have the big dogs. You got John Cena. You got LeBron Mao, or whatever you want to call him. Those are kind of old news. John Cena's coming into the meme sphere right now, so we figured it was a good lead into someone that we were very disappointed by. I'm not going to call this person a celebrity, but it's definitely someone who's influential that we were surprised is actually quite close to home for us.
Yeah.
He's been interacting with us, kind of. And we are very disappointed to see his stance on a lot of topics. And who might this be?
Well, put him in the background here. There's a guy called American McGee. And for those of you who grew up in the sort of 90s and 80s, you probably heard about him if you were into computers, because he made a very famous computer game, which both of us played back in the day, called American McGee's Alice.
Came out in 2000. I want to say my experience with this.
Yeah.
I was 13 or 14 years old when it came out, and I had saved up all of my lawn mowing money.
Okay.
I was out there mowing lawns, saving up some cash. And I didn't have very much money back then.
Yeah.
But when I saw in video game magazines when this game was going to come out, I was like, this looks awesome. You basically play as Alice in Wonderland, but it's like super dark.
It's like a dark goth version.
It's more of like in line with the original novel, right? And I thought it looked so cool. I saved up all my money. I went to Circuit City. My mom brought me there, and I spent all my hard-earned money on that game.
Right.
And I never thought that at that time I would be involved in a Twitter feud with the creator, American McGee. I really looked up to him as a kid.
Yeah, it's
because
unfortunate.
he was a really good developer, and I loved the game.
So yeah, he moved to China in 2005, I believe it was.
Yeah,
he's set up in Shanghai.
Yeah.
And that's where he's been. So he's been in China for the same amount of time as I've been in China, basically.
Yeah.
And he's been doing his, set up his independent game studios and stuff in China and various things like that. He seems to be focusing on plushie toys and things as his main form of business these days.
Something like that, yeah.
Anyway, the reason we're telling you all of this is it turns out that he's just a massive shill.
He's
and
a CCP
genocide
shill.
denier and a champion of the CCP and a hater of the West.
I wouldn't know that unless someone implicated me in his tweets.
Anyway, so we just have to tell you guys why we're so disappointed is, there's been a very clear form of shilling for the Chinese government, and that is this whole genocide denial. Okay, the genocide denial of what's going on in Xinjiang, and the apologists who are making excuses for it, who are saying that it's necessary for what's going on in Xinjiang with the vocational camps, the concentration camps where they literally take people away from their families and put them through these rigorous sort of training things and brainwash them and make them renounce their religion and renounce their language and, all this kind of stuff. It's pretty awful what they've been doing, and they convert mosques into just tourist attractions, and they take all the religious parts out of it, and, they force people to disavow their religion and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of terrible things going on. So you get a lot of people that are actually very pro what China's done to the Uyghurs, and he happens to be one of them, which is terrible.
That's messed up for two reasons. Number one, it seems so counterintuitive to be living in China when you're a games developer. China's absolutely murdering the game industry.
Yeah.
With censorship, restrictions. You can't have moral dilemmas inside of games.
No, but
you
here's
can't
the
show
thing.
violence. You
People
can't do
like
anything.
him rely on the Western market.
Right.
They don't care about the Chinese market.
That's
so he can sit in Shanghai, make his little plushy toys and
Sure.
stuff, make his games, and they get sold to a Western market. So he
True.
still relies
He
on
can
the
still
Western.
virtue signal.
Don't you think it's kind of crazy? You get someone like that who's sitting in China, praising the Chinese government, shitting on the West. Because I went through his Twitter feed in preparation for this show, and he really shits on America all the time. He's very political on his Twitter.
It's ironic with his name.
Yeah, his name's American.
I mean, you can shit on America all you want,
Yeah,
though.
but I'm just saying though, it is ironic that
Yeah.
someone like that is sitting in a country that really, he's not going to make his bread and butter from.
No.
He's not going to be
No.
able to sell his games there, especially something like Alice.
Oh, no.
It's
So
very, very
relying on the
frustrating.
Western market and then at the same time championing genocide and authoritarian dictatorships,
Yes.
and then constantly running defense for them. That's what I noticed on his tweets and some of his articles is that he's running defense for the CCP all the time.
Yeah.
And it turns out he was kind of also involved in conversation with somebody that is a very strong leader of genocide denial and pro-CCP propaganda.
So let's just the reason why we're talking about this is because it actually involved us. We were tweeted at, and you were tweeted at. So let's just get how this started. There's a guy over there. His name's Scott Adams, and he said, "This is about Taiwan, by the way."
Yeah.
Because American McGee is all for China taking over Taiwan.
Like, as an American, he supports the takeover of Taiwan.
He supports the invasion of Taiwan through his tweets. You can see. So somebody made a comment on the whole Taiwan thing because someone asked, "What did Biden give Xi?" Because they had this conversation about Taiwan. So Scott Adams says, "Given that China never keeps a promise, it's easy to see where this goes next." So American McGee, the game designer, said China makes promises in its 5-year plans. Okay. Now that's that communist crap they
plus
do.
15 social
Yeah,
credit.
exactly. How they keep those promises are public record, clearly evident in eradication of poverty. He said that. Can we talk about the eradication of poverty for a second here?
Just got to calm down a little bit.
What was their threshold for not being impoverished anymore?
$400 a year.
$400 a year. So, again, I want to ask you out there, as an audience member, if you made $400 a year, would you consider yourself impoverished? Because I would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing is, in China, if you make $400 a year,
something,
yeah, 436, I think it is. It means that you have been lifted out of poverty, and that's what he's talking about. Oh, look, see, they did poverty alleviation.
Also, the flip side of that is the government deserves credit for you making more than $400 per year.
Yes,
not you, not this business idea that you had, or
not
you
working
hard and planting more potatoes that year.
Yeah.
That's the government's poverty alleviation. And guess what, American McGee, one of my childhood heroes, the idea that the Chinese government supplied all of that money is incredibly disingenuous to the Chinese people that worked very hard to get themselves out of poverty.
Yes.
Number two, that poverty alleviation campaign, that's the 5-year plan that's in public record that you're talking about, those 5-year plans have never not been met. And you know that, American McGee, very, very frickin' well, that the 5-year plans have to be met.
Yes.
They make a 5-year plan and then they have to meet it. It's not that they meet it, they have to meet it.
And so they say they
Verbally,
meet it.
yes.
They say, oh, look, our GDP numbers reach this within that 5-year plan because we said so. But meanwhile, it's not true.
So Winston and I found a fantastic Chinese YouTuber's channel, and he did this unintentionally, but he was in a poor village.
Yes.
And what we noticed was, you know what? The people didn't get any more money. They still didn't have electricity or running water.
Yeah.
They still had all this communist propaganda everywhere, and they still had dirt huts.
Yes.
But you know what they did? They made them remove any evidence that it was an impoverished thing. So basically, a social welfare program wasn't allowed to donate money to them anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea that they were out of poverty now was just that they weren't allowed to get stipends anymore because they're not allowed to be poor.
Yes.
That's what American McGee is talking about.
Well, I mean, look, he goes on to say the massive infrastructure projects, etc. Just because your government doesn't keep promises doesn't mean it applies equally elsewhere. So he's just basically saying that the Chinese government can do nothing wrong. They always keep their promises. So somebody said, tell that to the Uyghurs. And this is where it gets into the genocide denial. Because we're calling him American McGenocide. America,
it's like a McDonald's genocide.
Exactly.
Can I get a McGenocide,
yeah,
please?
exactly. So
you have
anyway,
to go to China for that.
He says the Chinese put pictures of their ethnic minorities along with their language on the currency. Whatever else you're hearing is Western propaganda sold to you by the same liars who used WMDs to sell you war in Iraq. Okay, first of all, he shows pictures of 3 Chinese banknotes. They happen to be the lowest, most worthless banknotes. Yijiao, which is how many like US cents? It's like a 0.00. If you can bring that up, that'd be great. Yijiao is the smallest, lowest denominator of Chinese money. It's like a penny. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
The Yijiao note, the Erjiao note, which is 2 pennies, and the Wujiao note. These 3 notes, which are completely useless in China, except for the Wumao, you can put a whole bunch of them together to make something, have pictures of ethnic minorities on them, yes. But every other banknote has a picture of Mao Zedong, the brutal dictator.
It's 1 cent.
Is it 1 US cent?
Yeah.
Okay, so 1... Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like you're messing that up.
No.
That looked okay. Anyway, the fact of the matter is...
You're talking about Yifan.
Oh, Yifan. Yeah, Yifan Chen. That's right. Anyway, so these Yijiao, Erjiao, and Wujiao notes have that, but none of the others do. Okay, and the fact that he's trying to use that to say that China respects its minorities is a joke.
Yeah, the rest of the money's Mao.
Now, now this is relevant, okay? I'm not just reading out a Twitter battle here, guys, okay? This is relevant. The next person said, that's your proof? They put their enslaved ethnic minorities on their money?
Be more curious.
So he said, I am curious. So I speak to China's ethnic minorities when I travel and when I find them in the city where I live, Shanghai. You know, that's the thing. These foreigners who live in Shanghai think they know China, but Shanghai is the most Western, most sophisticated
How convenient.
part of China. So, you know, the people that end up in Shanghai aren't the far-flung ethnic minorities who are being oppressed. That's for sure. So, it's kind of shitty for him to think that's a good, yardstick. Anyway, he says, oddly, for an enslaved population, they have more mosques in China than in the USA. And there are Muslim restaurants on every major street. Look it up. Okay, so just because
what makes a restaurant Muslim?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, of course, there are more mosques in China.
Yeah, there's more Muslims.
Because there are more people.
Yeah, and more Muslims.
You know what? There are also more criminals in China. There are also more rapists in China. There are also more teachers in China.
Yes.
There are also more, I don't know, construction workers in China than
more
anywhere else.
cartons of milk.
Yeah, there's more
everything.
potholes
There's more
in the
potholes.
road. There's more of everything because there's more population. It's a dumb metric. The fact of the matter is that this becomes relevant now because this is where you get dragged into the conversation.
Yeah, and this is where I was shocked. I was like, wait, American McGee? I got excited.
Yeah, exactly.
And I started going through his stuff and I was like, oh, shit. Oh, no.
Yeah, so somebody actually tweeted at you this thing
So yeah,
about,
I said, is he right, Lao 86? And I said, yeah, there are more mosques in China and they are state run. And that's the point. These are state-run mosques, just like I'm Catholic, right?
Yeah.
The Catholic Church in China is illegitimate because it can't report to Rome, right? It has to follow the CCP. So same with mosques. They're all state-run, they're state-monitored, they're state-surveilled.
Yes,
They're
state-censored.
State-censored, and hives for people to get nabbed,
Yes.
right? So state-run and state-surveilled. Islam does exist in China and has less to do with what's happening to the Uyghurs than people think. The current genocide of the Uyghurs is because they're ethnically distinct from the Han Chinese, and I maintain that. The main reason that Han Chinese, the government, the CCP, is genociding the Uyghurs is because they're the most different from Chinese people.
Yes. So anyway, after that, we started to look through some of his tweets. And so he's been going on about this genocide denial and excusing the behavior of the Chinese government for some time.
Yeah.
So he said to some random person, how do you know what you think you know? Who do you trust? The people who actually live in China or U.S. intelligence agencies who've publicly stated that they consider China's rise the greatest threat to American dominance? Look deeper.
This is where it was shocking.
This is where he starts to share a very well-known genocide denier's video, okay? Terrible person who works for the CCP as proof, okay? This is really quite crazy. So someone actually replied to him and said, wait, what? Do you deny the Uyghur genocide?
Even they're shocked.
Yeah, because most people wouldn't think that.
No.
This guy is, very... I don't know how to put it, but, we'll give you one or two more here. Someone said, I'm not sounding like the brainwashed one, American. He's talking to American McGee, obviously. It sounds weird. His name really messes up the sentence.
Messes up, yeah.
So somebody said, I'm not sounding like the brainwashed one. The idea of taking 1.5 million people and locking them up until they no longer believe what they believe, forcibly enacting your will on them is torture. Anyway,
and this is
you
the coup de
slice
grace
it.
here.
Yeah. So he says, have a listen to this. And he shares that stupid genocide deniers video again. Would have sent you the link earlier, but I was preparing breakfast while defending myself from unfounded attacks. Yay.
Where's the attack?
Yeah.
Why is it always attack?
Yeah, you're unfounded
If someone
attacks.
disagrees with you, now you're getting attacked.
So he says, China suffered a series of brutal terrorist attacks led by Muslim extremists. Look it up. The response was to de-radicalize a portion of the population.
Can I just, before you go on there,
Yeah.
does he not sound like a neocon then? The whole de-radicalization, anti-Islam thing. I'm saying whether you are a neocon or neo-lib or whatever you are, his greatest enemy, the neoconservatives, does he not sound like exactly what he says they are?
Exactly. The response was to de-radicalize a portion of the population. When Americans were attacked by the same ideology, they destroyed multiple countries and killed or displaced millions. Okay, so that's what you hear a lot. This is the whole thing. They make excuses for the way China has cracked down on the Uyghurs and the Muslims. They always say, because they're terrorists and they're responsible for extremism and stuff like that. And then they always have to say, and America did something bad too. For people like me who are not American, when I get into these arguments, it's really annoying because this whataboutism doesn't change the fact that what China's done to the Uyghur minority is terrible.
That guy, I don't know who this guy is, but he says, you once again failed to keep America out of it. And that's a typical symptom of these conversations.
He says, just because the country I live in is shitty doesn't mean China is right in its attempts to de-radicalize their own people by locking them up and torturing them. Those people had nothing to do with the attacks. They're just Islamic.
And I would mirror that sentiment.
That's
that is
correct. So, this is the unfortunate thing. But it turns out that, here he goes in again. He says, American McGee says, I can't criticize China in relation to the way they handled their response to those attacks because it's exactly what I wish Americans had done instead of waging pointless, murderous wars. So what he wants America to have done is to go and lock up all Muslims.
First discriminate.
Yeah, first, okay, so Muslims are the problem.
Carve them out.
Is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Let's take them out of the population, put them in camps and de-radicalize them. That's what he wanted America to do.
Just because of their religion, according to him.
Yes, and just because some terrorists attacked on 9/11.
So now it's good to generalize all of them.
Yeah, that's
instead
what he
of
wants.
having a free country where you can practice whatever religion that you'd like to.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, it turns.
I was shocked.
Yeah, me too. It turns out that this guy supports all of the CCP's, campaigns.
Well, yeah, for most part, yeah.
No, like all of the big ones. Okay?
Yeah, the big ones. Yeah.
So here's another thing: people in China are free. 155 million of them travel to destinations outside of 2019.
Read this.
And they have a representative government with a voting system.
What? I mean, that reeks of that guy, the CCP dude that says, we are a democratic nation. It's just a different style of democracy. You get us wrong. You don't understand.
Yeah, a representative government with a voting system. Who votes?
There's no votes.
The CCP members, the party members
inside. It's an internal leadership.
Yes, the leaders vote who gets to be the next leader.
Even then, not really.
No,
you know what I mean.
It's amazing how much these guys buy into the propaganda.
It's not just propaganda. That's blatant misinformation. That's actually just a lie.
Yeah.
Right. There is no representation.
And then, of course, the whole Taiwanese issue, he's all on China's side of this one as well. It's like, oh, the 400K...
This is worrying.
400K plus Taiwanese who live and work in China are relying on the US to rescue them if they feel threatened? ? Maybe they don't feel threatened, He's just being
This isn't a Hitler moment.
No.
So it's okay. Let the CCP do whatever they want, even though they're wicked fascist.
Yeah.
And doing all these horrible things. That's fine.
Let them threaten Taiwan. It's totally fine. The US should not stand up for them.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. And then, of course, with the Hong Kong thing as well, he said, stand with, in quotation marks, the people of Hong Kong, ? How long before you have to stand with the 70,000 plus Americans currently residing in China? How about for once, let foreign nations handle their own issues? Based on my US news feed, y'all have enough of your own problems back home. So his whole thing is like, don't interfere, let China be bad, let China do its terrible things, and never question it.
The millions, I count millions of Hong Kongers that left their homes to go out on the streets to protest against the CCP to maintain their democracy and freedom.
Yes.
They're all wrong.
Yeah.
Because you think it's more important to talk about the expats that choose to live in China.
Yes, that's right. So anyway, someone said, just let those foreign nations oppress and hurt and murder and genocide their citizens. It'll be fine. Honestly, never thought I'd see someone with a brain defend China. Kind of disappointed.
And that's where I was. And this is very uncharacteristic of Winston and I to talk about things like this, especially go through a Twitter feed of an individual.
Yeah.
The problem is because he meant something to me in my childhood, and he's an influential person. This isn't like a paid government shill that you say, oh, he gets 1,000 views on YouTube or whatever. This is a real smart person, intelligent person.
Yeah, you would think so.
With an audience.
Anyway, just to show, he said, signed a lease on an office and warehouse space for Mysterious Incorporated. The company started in 2015 from a small home office in Jing'an with a single leather purse design. Now sells dozens of plush toys, accessories, and other items with designers around the world. So you see, here's the thing.
Why do we include this?
I included this to show that his entire business model is reliant on the Western world.
Right.
The people who he shits on, and they are the reason he makes money and has a success and the reason why he can maintain this life of his in China. And I think it's quite despicable. You know what I mean? That's the reason why I included this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he obviously is a massive genocide denier, cares nothing about the people in Xinjiang, the minorities who are actually being oppressed, the Taiwan issue, which of course, the Hong Kong protesters. And this is something you find with all of the shills. They started out with demonizing the Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters, calling them all like violent thugs and all that kind of stuff, by giving examples of a few bad eggs, right? And then they try to paint them all with the same brush. Then they moved on to the Xinjiang issue, calling them all extremists, saying that the way China handled them is good, which is what he's done. All of the shills do this, bar none. Every single one of them have said this kind of thing. And then now the Taiwan issue, because that's the next big issue. They defend China's actions and its warlike actions, saber rattling. It's sending the planes into the airspace. It's all this kind of stuff. They defend that too. So it's just very, very disappointing, like you said, to see someone who, another celebrity, because he is a celebrity.
He's
for
sure.
In the gaming world, everybody knows American McGee.
We definitely know him.
Yeah, we knew him. I think most of our audience probably know him.
Yeah.
And to find out he's just a piece of shit shill is very disappointing.
Yeah.
And it shows you that no one's above this. It's very easy to fall.
Yeah.
Very easy to fall hard.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
冰淇淋，再见。